Alright, it's time for another video, and hopefully the sound settings are better. I'm still learning how to work this contraption. This time we are talking about the magical diary. As you all might know, anybody who practices magic, whether that be ceremonial magic or Wicca or folk witchcraft, people are always very often encouraged to keep a magical diary. In the witchcraft traditions, it's often called the Book of Shadows, which is a great name for it because that's essentially what it is. To keep a magical diary is to confront various phantasms from within the mind. All right. So a magical diary is very often secured in a fancy form like this, or like this, as in a Book of Shadows. Okay. I think the best thing to do is obtain a nice high quality cover, the contents of which you can switch out with new pads of paper. So you can always have this really cool cover for your magical journal, but then switch out the insides of it. Okay, you go to the bookstore, you can probably find a good cover with the insides that are replaceable. I tend to just use a composition book. I don't really require a lot of trappings for my magic, but I think that's a good idea to have a magical diary that has a cover at least that's very significant to you. That makes it ritually very valuable to you. So why do we keep a magical diary? Okay, so many of you might have noticed, and you've come to this channel because you are maybe discouraged by the amount of ceremonial magicians out there who are assholes. Why are they so hoity-toity intellectual and dismissive, and why do they cling to the scholarly authorities? Why do they claim to have why do they pretend to be of high rank? You know, things like this. We've already talked about this earlier in a previous video, but the banishing work and the middle pillar work and things like that, they tend to inflate the ego temporarily. It's just part of how they work. So if you're wondering about this, you might want to check out the video that's called The True Nature of the LBRP. What it actually does. What does it do? Okay. And watch the video on the middle pillar so you get a better impression of what might be happening. The performance of the daily banishings in magic and the middle pillar work are probably not enough. You also need to spend some time processing the things that these rituals will stir up within you. All right. As I said in previous videos, your life tends to get tougher. It doesn't necessarily get better when you start doing the banishings. It can actually get tougher because the things that you need to process karmically are now being prodded to manifest around you. Not necessarily manifest materially, but they are being prodded to manifest, at least in your psyche, in your dreams, in your thoughts, in your perceptions, okay? And if you continue to ignore them, they will also begin to manifest physically as hardships and trials that you have to endure and suffering. All right. The interesting thing about dealing with karma is that the karma will begin to manifest first within your mind, within your dreams, within your visions, within your thoughts, before it necessarily manifests in physical reality around you. That's what seems to happen. If that's the case, that means that you can head off your karma before it materializes physically. So if you deal with any psychological issues you have before they manifest physically, then you can keep them from messing up your physical life. Okay, that's the idea anyway. Is there any guarantee that you can head them all off before they start affecting your physical existence? No, of course not. But this is the real reason why people keep any diary at all. They might not be aware of this, but they can head off the kinds of issues that they're dealing with that are starting to manifest around them. They can head these things off while they exist in the mind before they manifest out in the outside world as physical hardships. What this means is that why do magical ritual at all? You could just keep a diary and then start to deal with your issues and your baggage and your evolutionary trauma. You could deal with all this stuff as it's arising within your dreams, within your daily thoughts and things like that. Yes, that in itself is an act of magic. Okay, what that means is, you could dispense with all this phantasmagorical ritual and building a temple room and making magical implements and chanting conjurations and words of power and things like that. You could just keep a daily diary. Okay, and you will make some progress spiritually that way, very likely. Okay, however, there are advantages to combining both a daily ritual practice and meditation, let's say, and your magical diary. Those two practices work really well together. Okay. Many writers, of course, keep a daily diary, and it's pretty clear that it benefits them, but it doesn't necessarily benefit them the way that an intensive spiritual practice would benefit them. So maybe keeping a magical diary is, if you know how to do it, that would be enough for your spiritual practice. But in the meantime, you are training yourself through ritual, through meditation, and through the diary, how to manage your awareness and how to head off your karma before it materializes around you. All right, so people who do magic and they don't really keep an introspective diary or magical journal, their daily magical work is prodding all of their evolutionary baggage to manifest around them in their theater of the imagination, okay? And since they are failing to deal with their various psychological issues as those issues arise, it just simply leads to ego inflation. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the ceremonial magicians around you who, for some reason, have become assholes and are all about, do you really have your 5=6 grade initiation? Oh, is that practice you're doing really legitimate? Is it really like the way it was done by the original Golden Dawn? All these, fussy, clingy things that intellectuals do when they really start to get, sort of fanatical about their craft. All these things are a result of the work, and they can be dealt with if you know how to head them off. Okay, so to make it clear, when you do the daily ritual work, it's going to prod the uglier parts of your personality to come out so that you can confront them and make meaning from them and resolve them. In order to do that, you need to keep a magical journal. That's one way of doing it. A magical journal so that you can objectify them and see them and make meaning out of them, talk about them, talk to them, have them talk back. Okay. So we're going to go into the advantages of keeping the magical journal. To my mind, it's essential. If you're on the Hermetic path, this is an intellectual path of magic, okay? And so writing and reading and studying and drawing diagrams and trying to make sense of the contents of your mind, these are things that are part of the Hermetic path. So if you're going to embark on a Hermetic path, you're going to adopt the trappings of a scholar, pretty much a wizard, a a seer or a sage. And so you're going to have journals and bits of paper and books around you and diagrams and all kinds of tricks that the magician uses to facilitate his own enlightenment process. So one of the advantages of keeping a magical journal is evocation. And I like to refer to it as the light version of evocation, L-I-T-E, like a light beer version, a light version of a beer, okay? So you have your hardcore evocation practice, which involves drawing magic circles and chanting words of power and doing incantations, visualizations, incense, and all of the ritual trappings. But you also, outside of that, maintain a daily ritual diary entry where you talk about your experiences, your thoughts, your visions, your dreams, as they get prodded to manifest things to you, okay? A ritual practice without keeping this diary is a mistake, because these things that you are prodding with your daily ritual are going to be coming out of your psyche and demanding that you notice them and make some kind of meaning from them. All right. If you are not practicing this kind of self-observation and self-recording, the stuff that gets prodded to the surface is simply going to become accretions in your personality. It's going to make your life worse and worse. It's going to make you full of yourself, and you become that stereotypical ceremonial magician out there that nobody wants to talk to. And you're all about the titles and the, what grade are you in, that kind of stuff, okay? All right. In the Golden Dawn, there's a famous saying called, by names and images are all powers awakened and reawakened. The interesting thing is that there are many things in the psyche that your daily ritual practice, the LBRP and the middle pillar, let's say, those things are going to prod things in your psyche to awaken and sort of come forth and bother you for a while. Okay. And as we talked about before, every person is kind of seen as occupying a sphere of sensation. On some level, somewhere, our minds are basically in a state of non-motion. And all of this motion that the physical body goes through, traveling in your car, going to work, going on vacation, traveling in airplanes, wandering around the house, these things are happening in physical space, but in our true nature, the true nature of the mind, there isn't any motion going on at all. And so in one sense, your psyche could be seen just as a sphere of sensation. And if the physical body is walking through a landscape, let's say, well, then the physical sensation is just sort of moving around you. Okay. I'm bringing this up because it makes the psyche of the magician more like a theater of the imagination. And so if you're going to sit down to make a journal entry about the stuff that happened to you through the day, you're going to be talking about, these are the things that I experienced in my sphere of sensation. In my theater, so in other words, in my theater of the imagination today, here's what came up. And here's what seems to be playing itself out. Okay, it's a strange way of talking about your life. Okay, your life doesn't actually exist. It's basically just a display within your theater of imagination that arises, plays out some kind of drama, and it kind of does its little thing in front of you to try to get you to make some kind of sense out of it. Okay. That's why you keep a magical journal, so that you can prod this drama to reveal things to you, and then you can write about it. Okay. Yeah, and the ability to do that is extremely important. If you have a particular behavior that is now surfacing because you've been doing ritual, and that behavior is troublesome, like it's a bad habit, the nice thing is you can notice it now and say, oh, I think I've always had this habit. I'm only just noticing it now. Okay, let's give this habit a name. Let's see what it's trying to accomplish. Let's look at it. Let's ask it what it's trying to do and see if we can maybe resolve it somehow so that it doesn't bother me anymore. Okay, and likewise, all kinds of things that arise all around you are now bothering you, and then so that you can make sense of them and redefine them so that they are no longer troublesome anymore. Okay. So, by names and images are all powers awakened and reawakened. By names and images are all powers dealt with. So when they arrive, you can now give them names so that next time they crop up, you will have a name for them and recognize them. Oh, there's that annoying habit I have. There it is again. What was I going to do with that habit? Oh, I was going to turn it into this habit and then give that new habit a name. So the interesting thing that writing does for you, it allows you to label things and to objectify them. I'm going to go back to this one, objectification. Okay. It allows you to objectify things that you normally about yourself that you cannot see. So when themes are starting to materialize in your life, you can use various words, names, to label them so that you recognize them whenever they come up. Okay, or if you have a particular habit that's bothering you, or if you have a deep instinct that is arising in some kind of spirit form, okay, or like a spiritual or an evolutionary fear that you have inherited, like fear of heights or something like that. What image does it start to come forth as? Okay, or what kind of nightmare are you having on a regular basis that indicates the presence of that fear, of that deep evolutionary fear? And as you come up with names for these things, you can then deal with them. You can even talk to them, have them talk back, and all on the pages of your magical diary, if you like. Okay, and this requires some skill, obviously. As these things come out, some people refer to this as working through projections. So your daily ritual practice is prodding things within your mind and your psyche to materialize in some kind of form all around you. They might materialize in the form of a difficult boss. They might materialize in the form of your own troublesome habits or addictions that you now begin to notice. Whatever is manifesting around you, whether it's in your mind or in the apparent physical world, you now write about that in your journal and make sense of it. Presumably, if you make peace with it, it's going to be less and less in your life. It's going to diminish. And the various things that pester you won't be pestering you so much anymore. Working through projection. Okay, and so that involves the ability to objectify things that you otherwise would not be able to see. So many people have beliefs or fears or secret desires that they're not even aware of, and those beliefs and desires and fears tend to be running their life for them. And as they get prodded to become troublesome around you, you can maybe notice them, okay? And in your magical journal, give them names and try to figure out how they work, or have conversations with them on the page right then and there. Write a little dialogue, okay? And the more you understand these things, the more they will begin to feel understood. And they will resolve and stop bothering you. Okay, they'll get on friendly terms with you. Okay, and this is what it means to have familiar spirits. Okay, so if a troublesome trend in your life is starting to materialize around you, okay, this is something in your psyche that is demanding your attention. It's waving at you, saying, "Here I am. Make some meaning out of me." Okay. What you'll find is that all of these various spiritual forces that materialize around you, they like having meaning made out of them. Okay? Now, the interesting thing about magic is that, many people who are purists will say, well, that magical system you're using isn't real. It's entirely fictional. It's based on these bogus concepts, and it's really arbitrary what meanings we apply to them, blah, 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 right? Well, what they're missing out on is that the psyche of each person likes to be systematized, and to some extent, it likes to have interpretations drawn up over it. So if you have a system of magic like the Golden Dawn that you are using to apply to your life to make meaning out of it, your psyche tends to like that. It likes being able to present things to you, and then you use some kind of philosophy or system or whatever to make sense out of them and give them a purpose, give them meaning, help them play out their little dramas so that you can understand where they're coming from. Okay. So the whole idea of magic is that you are applying some kind of mythological construct to your life, not because that mythological construct is necessarily true, but because your psyche likes to have meaning made out of it. Okay, and that's so in other words, to do daily ritual every day, that's nice because you're really plugging directly into a lot of mythical powerhouses, various god forms, various geometric shapes, various symbols. Okay, and these powerful archetypal forces will stir things up in your life so that you can evolve faster than the average person. And then you sit down to write about them, to make meaning out of them, okay? So the practice of a daily magical journal entry is essential. It kind of forces you to sit down and figure out, okay, what's been stirred up inside me today? What do I need to make sense out of, okay? If you don't do this, all these disturbances get worse and worse, and they pretty much form layers within your personality, and then you can become increasingly ego inflated because there's so much stuff that is waiting for you to make sense out of it and waiting for you to make meaning out of it. I hope that makes sense. Now, objectification, the things in your life, in your psyche, that you are now prodding to appear before you, they appear in as various phenomena that are asking for you to objectify them. Okay, objectification is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, it's something that you use to make sense of your life. In other words, when some kind of overarching theme in your life begins to manifest, it's going to appear in various forms, as metaphors, as symbols. It very often will personify itself. It will appear as characters in your dreams or in your daydreams. Okay, it's personification and anthropomorphism. That's essentially the same thing. These are all characterizations of deeper aspects of the psyche. Your psyche will body forth aspects of itself to put itself on display before you. And it likes when you sit down and contemplate what it displays to you, okay? And this is what we do when we keep a magical journal. We sit down, think about the things that have been happening to us, and then we write about them, give names to the various forces that are appearing, okay? So we speculate as to where they might be coming from, how they arose. We even talk about what they might truly want, all right? And of course, these various manifestations of the psyche indicate the presence of powerful archetypes that are present in your life. Okay, themes, archetypes, these things come forth as characterizations, as personifications, as symbols, and even metaphors. Even the various settings that you find yourself in a daydream are living beings that are trying to communicate with you. And very often those settings will body forth some kind of dream character that can even talk to you, and that would be a spirit. Another reason for keeping a magical journal, if you are interested in astral projection or lucid dreaming, you can use your magical journal to identify dream signs. All right. That's really handy too. If you are interested in astral projection, you probably are moving throughout your daily work. Let's say you're going about your day and you're paying attention to all kinds of dream signs. So occasionally you will look around you and ask yourself, am I dreaming? Because you're trying to get in the habit of catching yourself dreaming when you really are dreaming at night. So if on a regular basis you do little reality checks to see whether you're dreaming, okay, eventually that habit will take over while you are sleeping at night, while you're dreaming, and you'll occasionally stop yourself and check to see whether you're dreaming. That gives you the chance to wake up in the midst of your dream and take control of it to some degree. And then you can take off and fly and go exploring and do really amazing things in the dream world. Okay, and so one thing to do with the magical journal is to sit down in the morning and write down the things that occurred in your dreams, if you remember them, that were unusual enough where they should have clued you into the fact that you're dreaming. Something weird happens that can't happen in the physical world, that's called a dream sign. Okay, and interestingly enough, some of the most common dream signs are the same types of things that we find in horror movies. So for instance, a vampire doesn't cast a shadow, doesn't have a reflection in a mirror. So if you're in the dream world, one of the ways to check whether you're dreaming is to see whether you have a shadow. You can look down to, oh, am I casting a shadow? Or you can look over into a nearby window to see whether you have a reflection in the glass. Oh, I have no shadow. I have no reflection. I must be dreaming. These are dream signs. Okay. And when you wake up in the morning, you want to take note of all the unusual things that happened during the dream that should have clued you into the fact that you're dreaming and giving you the chance to wake up in the midst of the dream and say, hey, wait a second, I can go exploring the dream world now. Okay, so that's another reason for keeping a magical diary, so that you can record dream signs in it. Okay, and as many of you know, like in order to be able to wake up in the midst of a dream, to experience lucid dreaming, it's very good to keep a dream journal. Okay, and what I'm proposing is that you don't waste a lot of time writing down all the events that happened in your dream, one after another, like a narrative. Just go through the dream and pluck out the dream signs and write those down. Okay, the narrative stream of your dream is not nearly as important as the things that you note that happen within it, especially the things that are sort of fantastical that can clue you into the fact that you're dreaming. Those are more important than the events of the dream. Okay. That's quite a pointer right there, by the way. We're shifting from writing down the narrative of the dream, which is a bunch of events, which can kind of get tedious and boring. You just want to try to capture the dream signs out of the dream, okay, and just capture those in your journal. Then you're done. And eventually you get in the habit of looking for dream signs everywhere. And you become increasingly awake no matter where you are. Not only do you experience lucid dreaming, but you experience lucid waking. And the whole process of all this magic and spiritual practice is to simply be permanently awake. No longer dreaming no matter where you are, whether you're sleeping at night or not. Okay, so you will wake up in the midst of a dream, and you'll find out if you wake up in the midst of your life, it's like, wow, this is a dream too. Keep in mind that the Buddha was simply awake. That's what Buddha means, the awakened one. He said, I'm not a god. I'm just an ordinary man, but the only difference is that I am now awake. I'm awake to the fact that I am dreaming. You, on the other hand, are still caught up within the dream. You think the dream is real. All right. Yeah, there's a lot to be. We'll be talking about astral projection and lucid dreaming more in depth soon. Another really good thing to do with your magical journal is time travel. You can go back in time and then refictionalize or mythologize the things that have happened, either in the dream or in the past, the things that are coming up in your thoughts or your daydreams or in your reflections or in your dreams at night. All these things can be manifestations of past trauma or past fears or past desires that are bugging you. There's a reason you show up naked in the classroom without your homework. That's a certain anxiety that's sort of haunting you that keeps following you around saying, hey, you need to resolve this, so that I don't need to keep cropping up again and again. Isn't that interesting? So much anxiety these days, and what it seems to result from is from people who are running away from it. They're just trying to suppress their anxiety or get away from their anxiety or medicate themselves out of their anxiety, which makes the anxiety worse and worse and worse, because all that's really happening is the psyche is throwing things at you saying, please make sense of this so it stops happening. And if you try to keep it from happening, all that stuff's just going to build up and keep clamoring for your attention until you make meaning out of it and help it resolve itself by itself. And this is what the magical journal is really good for. Okay. What you'll find is it's not really enough to sort of replay your day in your mind and your head, because it's all sort of nebulous, and being able to sit down and write about it really forces you to make words out of it and concepts out of it. And you'll find that the psyche likes to have labels applied to various aspects of it. Okay, your ability to objectify the psyche is really important. Okay, now you can do that in an abusive way, in a harmful way, but essentially what you're learning is how to do it in a productive way, so that you can process through your karma and start to sidestep it. You're basically sifting your awareness. You're trying to figure out, where does the drama end and where does my pure awareness begin? Because ultimately, your pure awareness cannot be touched by any of the drama that is coming up from your karma. Okay, and so the more you observe this drama as it's being prodded to manifest around you and in front of you, you begin to notice that, oh, I'm not the drama. It just plays itself out. It does its thing. And what you're eventually learning to do is end suffering, so that the drama continues. Yeah. There's no escape from karma, right? The drama continues, and you are now disengaged from it. There really isn't any self left to be hurt by it. Okay, so eventually the ego will die. That all that will be left is the persona, and the persona, when it's free of ego, no longer suffers. Life is still challenging. It still throws things at you, but none of it seems to be so personal anymore. Okay. This is the ultimate goal of magic, just quite simply, enlightenment. And of course, the closer to enlightenment you get, the better of a manifester you become, the better you get at magic. Another benefit of keeping a magical diary is that you harvest your thoughts. Okay, see, when you allow your fantasies and anxieties to play themselves out, and you review them, and you review the things that you fear, you review the things that you desire, You give names to them, you make meaning and sense out of them. You also develop plans of action that you wouldn't normally have done before. Okay, and so your whole life sort of gets reorganized around magic, and everything starts to pretty much get in line with the process of the psyche doing its dance in front of you so that you can regard it, make meaning out of it, and help it play out its drama without any fuss. Yeah, a lot of the fears we have can simply play themselves out in the mind, and they don't need to manifest in some kind of horrible form in our physical lives. This is the secret of really being able to handle a magical journal. You can let things play themselves out in the pages of your journal before they need to manifest in physical reality to beat you over the head. Conceivably, if you have something terrible happening in your life, it's because you have been neglecting it in the psyche, in that space where it has manifested before. And if it manifests in the psyche, it's basically saying to you, you need to make sense of me now before I appear in your physical circumstances around you, and then it's going to get really tough. Okay, so when things are happening in your mind, it's best to deal with them before they manifest in your physical reality. And the magical journal is a good way of doing that. And as you do that, you're going to harvest some thoughts. You can come up with new ideas. You can come up with new plans of action, which you would not normally get if you weren't living such a reflective lifestyle. All right, and if you go to the Forbidden Realms blog, there is an article there. I think it's called Magical Evocation, and it shows you how to summon up demons, okay, so that you can make peace with them, and you can do this in a ritualistic sort of way. And the really fun part about that article is that towards the end, it says Magical Evocation, the light version. Okay, L-I-T-E, the light version, okay? And that simply involves you sitting down at your magical diary, and instead of doing the ritual all dramatically with magic circles and barbarous names of evocation and things like that, simply write about a magician doing that and then confronting these various demons outside the circle, okay? You can also write about it, and you can process the things that are bothering you in the same way. Okay, so it might be enough for you to sit down sometimes and simply record an entire procedure, a narrative of your ritual process in your journal without actually doing it in your ritual space. Okay, now ideally you would do both. Okay, so you would do things in ritual practice, and then as things get stirred up in your life, confront them also on the pages of your journal. Okay. One of the things that Thomas Jefferson did is he kept a ritual, well, he kept a diary. We don't know whether he was practicing magic or not, but he also had dialogues with aspects of his psyche. And so he occasionally had a dialogue between his heart and his head. He was quite the intellectual, and but he also valued having a heart, a romantic sort of center in his chest, and so what you'll notice, he'll just do like a dialogue, a play, where his heart says something, blah 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 blah, and then his head says something in response, and his head and his heart are talking back and forth. And if you're really familiar with the Golden Dawn stuff, that essentially is a linking up of the ruach to the nefesh. So in other words, it's the consciousness of the brain rejoining the consciousness of the body. And as many of you might know, people in the West tend to suffer a split between mind and body, which of course doesn't exist. Where, if you look for that split, where would you find it? If you try to find it somewhere, it's nowhere, right? And somehow we still tend to regard the split between mind and body. Very interesting. Okay. And of course, in order to dissolve this split between mind and body, you can't just try to dissolve the split itself. You have to let that split do its thing. You have to let it play itself out. So the mind is looking at its physical circumstances and then making meaning out of them. Eventually it learns to dissolve back into the body or the universe or whatever. Okay. I'm hoping that's clear. All right, so that is the importance of keeping a magical diary. Very profound, really. Just if you just think of it in terms of trying to head things off that are troublesome before they manifest in your material circumstances around you. They manifest in the mind and in the emotions first, so that you can deal with them there as imaginal scenarios. If you fail to deal with them there, then they will manifest in your physical circumstances and your life gets tougher. Okay. So it's almost like the secret of an untroubled existence. You wonder why some people suffer more than others do. There are many reasons for that, but one of them could be that they are failing to process their karma while it exists only in the mind and in the imagination. They run away from it inside their minds, and so therefore that karma has no choice but to manifest around them in their physical circumstances, and then their life gets tough. Yeah, I guess this is one of the secrets of karma yoga. All right, I'm hoping that makes sense, and until next time.